Let's talk more about this ceasefire now. Even if it does hold, we want to look at the capabilities that Iran does have. A lot has been discussed in terms of black ops over the last couple of days and how it might not be a big military response against the US, but there could be things like cyber attacks. Joining me live now is CyberCX Executive Director, Cyber Intelligence, Katherine Mansted. Katherine, great to have you back on the program. First of all, what is Iran's expertise in cyber ops?
Yeah, good morning, Laura. It's wonderful to be back here. It's worth pointing out that Iran, but also Israel and the US, are some of the most capable cyber powers there are. What we know is that from the very beginning of this conflict, there has been a cyber dimension for days, months, years. Israel and Iran have hit back at each other in the cyber domain as well as the military domain. And we also know that Iran doesn't really distinguish between civilian infrastructure and military targets, and it has a habit of hitting back at the US and other Western countries using cyber means when diplomacy and indeed sometimes when military reprisals fail. So we have here not just the military dimension, which of course is capturing the airwaves. We also have a persistent and ongoing cyber dimension, which, as you said, might not follow the military dimension. We don't know yet if President Trump's ceasefire will hold, if he's got all those parties on board. But even if we see a diminution in the missile and the drone strikes, we may well see that war continue by other means.
When you have bombs and missiles exploding across the Middle East, often cyber attacks are underreported. Have we seen many between those three nations over the last couple of months? And do we know what form they've come in?
Yeah, look, I think these days, whenever there is a conflict that has a military dimension, you can bet there is a cyber dimension. Israel, for example, has talked about the way in which Iran, certainly in Israel's estimation, is using espionage, hacking into Israeli CCTV cameras, for example, to get a live estimate of battle damage in Israel. Of course, there is early reporting as well that there was a cyber dimension that helped Israel blinker Iran as those first missiles struck a couple of days ago. For the viewers here, though, I think the more interesting dimension is the way in which Iran tends to use cyber attacks outside the Middle East theatre. It has form for targeting US critical infrastructure, financial services, water, energy, for over 10 years, actually, when it wants to strike back at the US but doesn't have the military means or intent to do so. And even here in Australia, we've been on the receiving end of both Iranian government-backed but also non-state ideological activity, cyber activity, targeting our private sector in reprisal for the perception that the Australian government is pro-Israel or anti-Iran.
So obviously when you have host nations like Australia or the US being targeted, they like to play down the effect that some of these cyber attacks have had. So when it comes to Iran, cyber attacks from Iran on critical infrastructure or private businesses, are they more of a disruptor or have they been seriously disruptive?
Yeah, that's a really important distinction you make there. And we certainly put advice out to all of our critical infrastructure customers in Australia and globally yesterday, following the escalation over the weekend. The message is here, be alert but not alarmed. Generally what we see from Iran is low-level disruptive activity. So, for example, distributed denial of service attacks that knock websites offline, defacement of websites with pro-Iran propagandistic messages or anti-Israel propagandistic messages. We also do know that Iran has deeper capabilities than this, though. We have seen Iranian hackers target operational technology. So that's the kind of technology that makes industrial systems tick. Soon after the October 7th attacks, an Iranian group targeted Israeli technology that was used globally in the water and wastewater sector, showing that they have the ability to access and compromise operational technology as well. So Overwhelmingly, the most likely type of attacks that we will see are those that are disruptive. I should point out, though, that for individual organisations affected, that can have real harm. It can have economic loss attached to it. It can have a disruptive effect. But there's also the chance that we will see potentially more disruptive attacks. Iran has intent and capability and form for this as well. Way back in 2012, if we can go back that far, it feels like a pre-cyber age, but we saw Iranian hackers hit at Saudi Aramco following disputes between Iran and Saudi Arabia that caused mass damage to Saudi Aramco, 30,000 machines wiped, and significant economic loss. So there is capability there. There's also intent there to cause more significant harm. Organisations, particularly in the Middle East, but also increasingly in the US, will absolutely be on a watching brief at this point in time for the known tactics and tradecraft of our Iranian state-sponsored cyber actors.